Welcome back to SilverBear Books. I'm the hairiest host who loves books the most. I am SilverBear, and this is the sweetest little bear that was ever in there. That is Honey Bear. I'm recording back-to-back reviews today because my throat is killing me, and because of that I am slightly behind in just about every facet of my personal life, so I am trying to get a couple of reviews pumped out so that I'm set for the rest of the week. So, today we're going to talk about Adrian Goldsworthy's True Soldier Gentleman. And I found this very pretty hardcover at an op shop for just $3. So I was pretty impressed with that. It is a very pretty looking cover. Hold on to that for me, bud. And True Soldier Gentleman is a historical fiction set in the Napoleonic Wars. It was a period of history I don't know a great deal about, and so it was really interesting to spend some time exploring this time in history with these particular characters. So it follows a regiment of British troops in the Napoleonic Wars, and the author Adrian Goldsworthy is actually a legitimate historian of that period, and so this regiment of soldiers is fictional. However, they interact with real-life units and in real-life battle situations. That way, Goldsworthy can be true to the history of the time period and also have the creative and artistic license necessary to, be creative and explore and tell a story. And so this book, at the beginning, follows a volunteer officer, and so he has signed up to the army and is hoping through valor to win a commission because his family don't have enough money to out and out purchase him one. And it follows these soldiers as they prepare for conflict with Napoleon's troops, although they're not sure where in Europe that's going to take place and when this battle is set to commence. Only that there is some vague knowledge that in the future they will eventually have to clash with him as he rampages through Europe. And it doesn't shy away from the rigmarole and day-to-day conflict of preparing for battle. Endless drilling, commissions, requisitions, all of the stuff that most books set in this period of time would have shied away from because they it's not necessarily going to be the most interesting thing in the world. And this book takes an interesting approach with that. It gives us sort of the first third to first half of the novel entirely in that preparatory phase as we get to know 3 or 4 core characters, and we get to see them as they prepare for this battle, and through that we get to see their friendships and their intercommunications and their interrelationships and their families and all these sorts of little hints and clues as to who they are, which creates a reason for us to stick around until the grisly combat starts. And that was really clever in my opinion, because by the time we got to the actual conflict itself, I did care about at least a couple of them. It's not perfect in that sense. I still didn't feel the strongest connection with a whole bunch of characters. There was only really 1 or 2 that I cared about enough that I was willing to stick through. But it was still interesting enough in its execution that I got to the battle part. I got to the conflict, which wound up in, spoiler alert, they wind up in Portugal. But that was interesting enough to hold my attention. So that was good. I can sort of sense that Goldsworthy realized that there maybe was a lack of action in that first third to half, because there is sort of this weird little side quest where they go to help this woman who has been cheated by a Russian soldier and she needs their help and all that kind of stuff. And it is almost completely superfluous to the plot. It's not necessary. It's interesting. I'm not saying it's bad or anything like that, but it was an obvious to me red flag that Goldsworthy realized, I need something to keep the intrigue here, so I'm going to insert this little side quest in order to make sure that people have something to latch onto. And look, that's understandable. I completely get that. And it works. Overarchingly, it works. The details about the time period and the way these characters interact is really interesting, and it gives you this sort of good baseline understanding about what life might have actually been like at the time. I think I said it earlier, but Goldsworthy is a historian of the time period, and so apparently he is a real stickler for detail. And as far as novels set in this period of time goes, it is one of the ones that is most accurate in its presentation. So I think that's really fascinating. And anyone that sort of has an interest in the military, older periods of history, the Napoleonic Wars, anyone with British heritage that may have had relatives that were sort of in and around this time period, I think they would all find this really, really interesting. So for me, it was rock solid. It's a 3-star read. I certainly enjoyed it. I'm not going to complain at all about what I got out of this book. I think maybe I have the sequel, and I think I'll give that a go. And I'm thinking that maybe if that starts off further into the conflict, it might be a bit more of an action-packed book. It may not need a sort of out-of-nowhere detour in order to keep the interest levels up. But I really enjoyed it. Solid read, and I would most definitely recommend it. So, True Soldier Gentleman, have you read it? What did you think? And do you have any other recommendations for either Napoleonic War history or any other historical fiction novels that you found really interesting? Drop them in the comments, because I'm super keen to read more in this genre. It's not something I've done a ton of, and I will catch you next time. Let's pop True Soldier Gentleman onto our review shelf, and that is starting to look healthy. All right, thank you very much. I'll see you guys next time.